Now we are ready to write the results section. The results section focuses on two groups. The data analysis focuses on two groups. We created these two groups. One group were those people who reported suicide attempts. Another group were those people who reported having interpersonal conflict. We want to compare their symptom profiles. You have to elaborate on this a little bit. When we are looking at these two samples, we look at some global indices. We look at whether they differ in symptom. What is this one? Well, this is a typo. Global Symptom Index. Global Symptom Index, the average score on the 90 items, and the PST, Positive Symptom Total, the total number of positive items, Positive Symptom Distress Index, and we also want to look at their symptoms. Not only we look at the global combined composite scores indexes, but we also look at the specific symptoms. Do the two groups show unique symptoms? Here's a level 2 heading. Level 2 heading, the two main areas of data analysis. We start with the global scores, summary scores. You can call it a summary score, or you can use a global score. These results are given in the instructions. This table shows the results on the Global Symptom Index, Positive Symptom Total, Positive Symptom Distress Index. You don't want to copy and paste this table in your paper. You want to explain the result in your own words, in text. We look at the groups. These are the groups being compared. The total sample had 871 people. Among these people, 9 reported suicide attempts. 31 reported having interpersonal conflict within the past 2 days. One interesting finding is on the GSI. Which group has highest GSI, Global Symptom Index? Interpersonal conflict. The persons who had interpersonal conflict within the last couple of days, they had the highest level of overall symptom, average symptom, 2.16. The next highest were those who reported suicide in the past, maybe recently, maybe a long time ago. We don't know the timing of the suicide attempts. These two groups, these two kind of risk groups, these groups were at risk. One for suicide, one for interpersonal conflict. They were both higher than the total sample. The total sample average as GSI is 1.45. The two groups do differ on Global Symptom Index. Do they also differ in Positive Symptom Total, the total number of positive symptoms? Yeah. The interpersonal conflict group was still the highest, followed by the suicide attempt group, 56.8 versus 51.67. Both groups were higher than the total sample. The total sample had a total number of 29.48 positive symptoms. The proportion of differences on PST is bigger than the proportion differences on GSI. For positive symptom total, the interpersonal conflict group is almost twice as high as the total sample. But on GSI, the interpersonal conflict group, how many times? You have to do the math. Here you have to do some calculation. I got a calculator. In other words, the students have to do part of the data analysis. Interpersonal conflict, 2.16 divided by the total sample, 1.45. 1.45. Yeah, that's 1.5 times. 1.5 times as high. Participants reporting interpersonal conflict was 1.5 times as high as the total sample on Global Symptom Index. You have to calculate this and report it in the paper. And what about those who had suicide attempts? 1.95 divided by 1.45. That's even lower. 1.34 times as high. That's a proportion difference on GSI. But what about positive symptom total? So, where's my calculator? Positive symptom total for interpersonal conflict, it's 56.8 divided by 29.48. That's almost 2 times, 1.93 times as high. And so the PST seems to be more powerful in differentiating between people who are at risk from those who are not at risk. Well, I mean the total sample, the benchmark. For people who have interpersonal conflict, they are 1.93 times as high as the total sample. What about those who had suicide? Suicide attempt group 51.67. This is a total number positive symptoms they had divided by 29.48, 1.72, 1.75 times. So it seems that the PST is the most powerful differentiator between those who had reported risk behaviors and the total sample. How about a positive symptom index? If you eyeball them, the two risky behavior groups don't seem to be so different from the total sample. You can do the math yourself, get a calculator and do the calculation. So this number is a little bit higher than this one, and this number is a tiny bit higher than this one, but the proportion is not so great. the conclusion on the global score is that PST is the most effective in differentiating the two risky groups from the total sample. That's what you need from here, from this result. And the next part of writing was comparison of symptoms. At the symptom level, each specific symptoms, do the two risky groups have unique symptom profiles? We want to get the top 10 items that differentiate or distinguish those who report suicide compared to those who did not. And the top 10 items that distinguish those who report interpersonal conflict compared to those who did not. Here, I need the Excel file. This is the Excel file of the items, the SL90 items. You have the item number and the item, what the item says. I used to, I added this this part to the file. I was going to ask the students to figure out, match each item number with each item themselves, but I decided to add them to the file. This is suicide attempts. Suicide attempts. This column C, the mean difference. This is the difference between those who did not report suicide and those who did report suicide. The mean difference, that's column C, the difference between individuals who did not report suicide and those who did. All the differences are negative, which means those who did not have suicide attempts had lower scores than those who did report suicide attempts. The majority who did not have suicide attempts had lower symptom levels than those 9 people who had suicide attempts. And I ranked them. I ranked according to the order of mean difference. I sorted them, according to mean difference, from the biggest difference to the smallest difference. On the top difference, well, you can play around with the data set. It's suppose that if I want to sort the data, I can sort according to column A is item number. Then you have item 1, headaches. The mean difference is here, the p-value. And number 2, item 2, nervousness, the mean difference. But then, yeah, it's better to sort it according to the mean difference. I want to go back. How can I go back? Is there like a back button? Undo. Okay. Is it back up? So I can go. I don't want to keep it this way. You cannot undo it. Well, let's sort it according to column C. Alright, but now if I started according to column C, the labels are in the back. That's okay. I'm looking for the top 10 for suicide, top 10. Number 1, feeling no interest in things. It's a big difference between the two groups. Big difference between those who did not have suicide attempts and then those who did. The difference was 1.17, more than 1 point. And the next one is feeling uneasy when people watching or talking about you. Almost 1 point difference. Number 3, feeling fearful. Number 4, having thoughts that are not your own. Yeah, what kind of problem is this related to? Maybe obsession. It's unclear. This one is kind of weak. Or maybe psychosis. Feeling blocked in getting things done. Feeling frustrated, basically. Feeling low in energy. Slow down. Get into frequent arguments. This one is unique. All the other items are intrapersonal. All the other items are distress directed towards the self. I have no interest. I don't want to do anything. I feel uneasy when people are watching you, talking about you, and feel fearful, having thoughts not my own, being blocked in getting things done, getting frustrated, low energy, slow movement. This one's unique. It's hostility directed to other people. It's interpersonal hostility. Number 8, feel inferior to others, low self-esteem. That's also interpersonal. It's hostility against myself. Spells terror or panic. Intrapersonal. It's hostility against myself, self-punishing. And then number 10, feel everything is an effort. This one is also self-directed. The distress is intrapersonal. And you see the pattern. For the group that had reported suicide attempts, their most prominent symptoms are intrapersonal. Is distress or suffering directed to the self. There's one exception. That is having arguments. Where's frequent? Well, I'm looking for frequent arguments. Having thoughts blocked, low energy, getting into frequent arguments. This is number 7, ranks number 7. Pretty different, kind of significant difference between those people who had suicide attempts and those who did not. And the p-value is all smaller than 0.05. The p-value is all close to 0. That means that these differences are not due to random error, not due to chance. The probability that this, well, let me take this example. Take this example 14. Feeling low energy or slow down. The p-value is 0.006. What percentage is that? So it's like a 0.6, less than 1% probability that this difference is due to chance. So it's not due to chance. It's significant, statistically significant. All the top 10 items are statistically different between the people who had suicide and then those who don't. Among the top 10 items, only one item was related to interpersonal hostility, and the other 9 items on the top 10 were all related to intrapersonal or self-directed distress. This is for the suicide attempt group. What about those people who had experienced interpersonal conflict? Interpersonal conflict, I ranked them already. I sorted them according to mean difference, from the biggest difference to the smallest difference, and the top 10 biggest difference. Number 1, the most different, feeling easily annoyed or irritated. I'm annoyed easily. I get irritated easily. By whom? By other people. Usually this means that other people bother me. I feel bothered by other people, and that's related to interpersonal hostility. Yeah, you can do some notes takings. Interpersonal hostility. And how about this one? Worry too much about things. That's intrapersonal. That's self-directed. And feel blue. That's intrapersonal. Feel others are to blame for most of your troubles. That's definitely interpersonal. Interpersonal means other-directed. Intrapersonal is self-directed. Distress, hostility, self-directed, and other-directed, self-directed. Yeah. Having urge to beat, injure, or harm someone. That's interpersonal. Trouble remembering things. Have trouble remembering things. We can characterize this as interpersonal, intrapersonal, self-directed. I don't bother other people, but I can't remember things. I keep forgetting. Feeling weak in some part of your body. That's intrapersonal, self-directed. Temper outbursts you could not control. Oh, yeah, temper outbursts, that's other-directed. Interpersonal, it's other-directed. I have temper outbursts. I yell at people. I verbally abuse them. Feel critical of others. That's interpersonal, other-directed. Last one, this is number 10. Trouble concentrating. That's intrapersonal, self-directed. You see, these people who have interpersonal conflicts, they have a different pattern than those who have suicide. Here, the suicide group, you have one item that is interpersonal. All the others are intra. You can fill out the rest of the cells. But for people who have conflicts with other people, let's count up. Count up other-directed, interpersonal. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 of the top 10. Half of the symptoms are other-directed, directed to other people. Hostility directed to other people. But they also have some self-directed distress, like worry too much, feel blue, trouble concentrating. It's a combination. 5. That's 2 different profiles. And you can write this up in your writing. you can report that the top 10 items that distinguish those who report suicide attempts compared to those who did not show that most of the distinguishing symptoms on the top 10 list were intrapersonal, self-directed distress. You list them. You list the top 10. There was only one item that was related to interpersonal or other directed hostility, which was getting into frequent arguments and fights. However, on the top 10 items that distinguish those who report interpersonal conflict compared to those who did not, there's a combination of interpersonal and intrapersonal hostility. Half the items on the top 10 can be characterized as intrapersonal or self-directed. The other half may be characterized as interpersonal or other directed hostility or distress. You can list them. The conclusion is that these two groups at risk show different symptom profiles. Those who show suicide attempts show mostly interpersonal, self-directed symptoms. However, those who report interpersonal conflict show a combination or mixture of interpersonal, other directed, and intrapersonal, self-directed symptoms. And these results support the hypothesis. That's the results section. Here, well, for each one, you report the mean differences. Yeah. The key statistics. The mean differences. You don't have to report each difference. Here you have 10 differences for conflict, 10 differences for suicide. If you report each one of them, that might be too wordy, too complex. It's sufficient to report the range of the smallest difference on the top 10 to the largest. The smallest difference 0.799. The largest difference was 1.174. The differences on the top 10 range from 0.799 to 1.174. 2 decimal points would be okay. 2 decimal positions. You don't have to report the negative sign. The negative sign just show who has the lower score. People who have no suicide attempts have lower symptom scores. The absolute difference is the most important number. And you report the range, mean differences, and then what else? The range of p values. P-values, you can also simplify it a little bit. So one major convention for psychology that a p-value is, if a p-value smaller than 0.05, that's considered as significant, statistical significant. If the p-value is smaller than 0.01, 1%, that's even more significant. This is more stringent criteria for determining statistical significance. In your paper, you can say, well, all the differences between the two groups on the top 10 list were statistically significant. P smaller than 0.01. You can save some space. You don't have to mention the p-value for each comparison. After you finish the results section, you have the conclusion, discussions to summarize the key findings. You can talk about the global indices first. You can say we compared people who report suicide attempts with the total sample. Well, not the total sample, kind of backtrack. So this comparison is you compared between those who had suicide attempts and those who did not. Those who had reported having suicide attempts and those who did not report having those attempts. And we compared those who reported interpersonal conflict within the last 2 days and those who did not. And we found significant differences. However, the two risk conditions showed a different symptom profile. Suicide attempt group showed mostly intrapersonal self-directed hostility or distress. On the other hand, individuals who reported having interpersonal conflict, they showed a mixture of interpersonal and intrapersonal, half-half. And then you talk about potential implications. Well, what are the potential implications? And what are the implications for screening, for treatment? One potential implication that if you are screening for people with suicide risks, you want to pay attention to internalizing symptoms, intrapersonal. You want to focus on distress, hostility directed inward to the self. But if you are screening for risk for interpersonal conflict, violence, aggression, you want to focus on a mixture of internalizing, self-directed distress, and interpersonal, externalizing, hostility, aggression, distress. For treatments, you want to discuss that if you want to help people who have suicidal risks, maybe you want to coach them on self-compassion, be compassionate to yourself. But for people who have risks for interpersonal conflict, maybe you want to help them by training them or encourage them to show compassion, feel more compassion to other people. Of course, also compassion to the self. Self-compassion, other-directed compassion, empathy would all be helpful. And then the last part is the reference, APA style reference. You need only these references. You don't need other references.